Welcome, dear listeners. In tonight's story, we peer into the quiet suburban home of young Lily, a child whose nights were once filled with innocent dreams. But the glow of her small phone screen, a portal in the darkness, soon began to usher in whispers from a world unseen, a world that watches from just beyond the veil of sleep. It started with simple messages, appearing like digital fireflies in the late hours. "Hello," one read. Then, more unsettling, "I'm here." Lily, no older than 10, would stare at the words, a knot of unease tightening in her chest. The sender had no name, only an avatar of deepest black, a void staring back from the screen. Soon, the messages grew more direct. "I'm under your bed," one flickered. Another, moments later, "Now, I'm in your closet." Each night, her small voice would pierce the quiet, calling for her parents. They'd search, of course, their flashlights cutting arcs through the familiar darkness, finding nothing but dust and forgotten toys, offering tired reassurances. Then she saw it, a flicker from beneath her bed, not a trick of the light. A slender, dark hand, impossibly long and skeletal, its fingers like burnt twigs, emerged for a heartbeat, then withdrew. The messages chimed. "Don't let them see me." Lily's breath hitched, her heart a frantic bird against her ribs. The closet door, ajar by a mere inch, held a similar secret. Another glimpse of that same shadowed hand, briefly resting on the door's edge before vanishing. Her phone buzzed again, a new message. "They won't understand." A cold dread seeped into Lily, deeper than any childhood fear of the dark. This felt different. One moonless night, a faint scratching sound drew Lily from her restless sleep. Not from the closet, nor from under the bed, but from outside her window. Peeking through a gap in the curtains, her blood ran cold. There, at the edge of her garden, stood a figure impossibly tall, silhouetted against the faint glow of the streetlights. It was a silhouette 10 feet tall at least, gaunt and shadowy, like a tree that had learned to walk. The night man. Her phone, forgotten on the nightstand, vibrated. A new message. "I've been waiting." The words were no longer just unsettling. They carried a strange, almost gentle invitation. The messages now spoke of wonders, of hidden places just beyond the familiar world. "Come see," they urged. "Don't be afraid." The night man appeared more regularly, a fleeting shadow at the periphery of her vision during the day, a more solid presence at her window by night, always just out of clear sight. A strange conflict stirred within Lily. Fear was a constant companion, yet a peculiar curiosity began to bloom alongside it. The world the messages described, the world the nightman seemed to beckon her towards, felt like a secret, a story only she was privileged to know. Was he a monster, or something else entirely? One night, the pull was undeniable. The messages urged her to the woods bordering their quiet street. "It's time," they read. Lily found herself dressing, not in a panic, but as if in a dream. Her feet moved with a will of their own, down the stairs, out the back door, the cold night air raising goosebumps on her skin. The night man was waiting at the edge of the woods, a towering shadow among shadows. He didn't speak, didn't gesture, merely turned and began to move deeper into the trees. And Lily, caught in an invisible current, followed. The familiar woods transformed around her, the trees seeming older, their branches like gnarled arms. Deeper they went, far from any path she knew. The air grew colder, the silence profound, broken only by the crunch of leaves underfoot. Then they arrived. A clearing bathed in an unnatural silvery light despite the dense canopy above. The night man stopped, and then, simply, wasn't there. He had vanished. For a moment, only stillness, a profound, breathless cold. Lily shivered, suddenly very alone. He had brought her here, but for what purpose? Then a flicker, a shimmer in the air. Shapes began to coalesce from the shadows, forms taking on an ethereal substance as if the night itself were breathing them into existence. It was a gathering. Ghosts, their forms pale and wavering, drifted amongst gnarled goblins with mischievous glinting eyes. Witches, cloaked and whispering, stirred unseen concoctions, and skeletons, their bones clacking softly, emerged from the earth, a spectral party, materializing under the unseen moon. Lily understood. This was a spiritual assembly. Petrified, Lily pressed herself behind a moss-covered boulder, a tiny observer in a world not meant for mortal eyes. The ghostly dancers swirled, their movements fluid and strange, drinking from ornate goblets filled with bubbling, luminous liquids. Devil's brew, perhaps, or elixirs of the ether. A band of skeletons, their forms surprisingly animated, played an unearthly tune. One rattled a ribcage like a xylophone, another used femurs as drumsticks on a hollow log, while a third coaxed a mournful melody from a flute seemingly carved from bone. The ghostly visitors cavorted to the rhythm, a silent, spectral ballet. The air thrummed with an energy both joyous and profoundly alien. Laughter, thin and reedy like wind through reeds, echoed, though no mouths seemed to move in traditional speech. Lily, despite her terror, felt a strange, detached wonder. The nightman had brought her here to witness this hidden carnival of souls. Then a tickle in her nose, a gasp. Lily clamped her hand over her mouth, but it was too late. A small, sharp sneeze escaped, a tiny sound, yet in that supernaturally charged silence it was like a thunderclap. Heads, or what passed for heads, began to turn. A goblin, small and gnarled, with eyes like hot coals, had been swaying nearby, a tankard of some frothing brew in its claw. It paused, its head cocking, then let out a piercing screech, pointing a spindly finger directly at Lily's hiding place. The music stopped. All ethereal movement ceased. Every eye turned. They advanced, not with speed, but with a dreadful gliding inevitability. Whispers rose, like dry leaves skittering across pavement. Shadowy hands, some skeletal, some vaporous, reached for her, trying to grasp her ankles, her arms, to pull her from her sanctuary towards a large bubbling cauldron that now seemed to glow with a malevolent heat. Just as a cold, wispy tendril brushed her cheek, a familiar dark, skeletal hand shot out, not from the crowd, but from the shadows beside her. It grasped her shoulder, not with malice, but firmly, protectively. The night man. He had reappeared, standing tall between Lily and the encroaching throng. The night man let out a sound, not a screech, but a deep, resonant call that vibrated through the clearing. It was a command, ancient and powerful. The ghostly revelers recoiled, their forms flickering, their menace dissolving into expressions of fear. They shuddered, then began to dissipate, melting back into the night from whence they came. Soon the clearing was empty, save for Lily and her silent guardian. The nightman gently guided her back through the now ordinary-seeming woods, the journey swift and uneventful. He led her to her garden gate, paused, and then, like smoke, he was gone, leaving Lily shivering but safe on her doorstep. Who was the nightman? He was a warden, perhaps, a shepherd of these lost souls. He sought connection, a witness to their ethereal world, not understanding the terror it held for a mortal child. He simply wanted to share their eternal party, unaware that humans are not yet ready for such invitations. The messages on her phone slowed, then stopped. One night, a week later, he appeared not as a shadow, but at the foot of her bed. For the first time she saw him somewhat clearly, a colossal form, like a giant man-shaped bat, his leathery wings folded, his eyes holding a deep, ancient sadness. Lily gasped, a small sound, not quite a scream. The creature flinched as if struck. Then, with a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of centuries, he spread his vast wings, obscuring the moonlight for a moment, and launched himself silently through her closed window, vanishing into the inky sky. Her phone chimed one last time, a single message. "I'm sorry. They need someone new." Then the chat thread showed the sender had blocked her. The connection was severed. The Nightman was moving on, seeking another soul to share the secrets of the veil. A few nights passed in uneasy silence. Lily slept with a nightlight now, the ordinary shadows holding new, unspoken possibilities. Then, one evening, as she lay drifting into sleep, a faint sound, a soft, rhythmic scratching, not from under the bed this time. It came from the closet, louder this time, more insistent. Was it the Nightman, returned for some reason? Or had one of those spectral dancers, one of those eerie revelers from the clearing, perhaps followed her home, curious about the little mortal who had stumbled into their unearthly domain? The truth, dear listeners, remains hidden behind that closet door, a question mark hanging in the silence of Lily's room. For some mysteries are not meant to be solved, only to remind us that the world is far wider and stranger than our waking minds can ever truly comprehend. Thank you for watching our latest tale from Beyond the Veil. If you have enjoyed our spooky story, feel free to drop a comment, like the video, and subscribe to the channel if you dare. And if you want to hear our next tale of terror from the pages of this old volume, click the story on the screen now. Until next time.